And if it's anything I could do, help, I'm here. The part that really messed with me is that Blueface doesn't seem active in the child's life because of his disability. Hold on. I feel like that's what triggered me, and my anger overpowered my message. I didn't get to deliver any way, shape, or right, and I apologize to you. It didn't deserve my words, and the grace you showed me spoke volumes to the season of your life. You're in the right now, and I'm here to support and congratulate.
Listen, the internet did not wake up peacefully today because somehow, someway, Chrisean rockin' Karlissa Saffold has turned a sensitive situation into a full-blown digital war zone. And I'm not talking about a little disagreement. I'm talking about timelines exploding, comment sections looking like WW Royal Rumble, and fans picking sides like it's the finals of the Hunger Games. Because the moment Chrisean stepped forward and basically said, "My son is fine," the internet paused, blinked, and then Karlissa said, "Oh really?" And just like that, BOM chaos. Now here's where it gets messy. Because this isn't just gossip. This isn't just shade. This is about a child, which makes the entire situation feel like watching a reality show that went way too far off script. One side is screaming denial, the other is dropping claims that sound like a full medical report, and the audience, oh, they are invested. Doctors on TikTok, experts in comment sections, fans acting like they got PhDs overnight. It's giving Grey's Anatomy meets Twitter fingers. But what really sent everything into overdrive was the tone, because Chrisean didn't just deny the claims, she shut them down with full confidence, like someone slamming a door mid-argument. And Karlissa, she didn't whisper her response, she came back louder, doubling down, making it sound like theirs. Way more going on behind closed doors than anyone expected. Suddenly, this isn't just a disagreement, it's a he said, she said situation with emotional stakes, public pressure, and a whole lot of side eyes. And here's the thing nobody wants to admit, the truth, it's somewhere in the middle. Or maybe it's buried under layers of ego, pride, and internet performance. Because when family drama becomes content, things don't stay private, they become weapons. And right now, both sides are swinging. But wait, because just when you think you've heard everything, new reactions started surfacing, fans digging up all the clips, past statements, and moments that suddenly hit different. Now to really understand why this situation blew up the way it did, you have to rewind the timeline a little, because this didn't just appear out of nowhere like a random internet rumor. This tension, it's been simmering for a while, quietly building in the background while fans were distracted by everything else going on in Chrisean Rock's chaotic public life. And if you've been watching closely, you already know this family dynamic has never been calm. From the moment Chrisean stepped into motherhood, the spotlight didn't dim, it got brighter. Every post, every live stream, every appearance suddenly came with commentary, opinions, and people analyzing her every move like it was a case study. And unfortunately, her son became part of that conversation whether anyone liked it or not. Supporters were cheering her on, critics were side-eyeing everything. And the internet basically appointed itself as judge, jury, and pediatric specialist. Overnight. But then came the subtle moments that people didn't forget. Clips started circulating, small, seemingly harmless videos where fans began asking questions, not accusations, just questions. People pointing out developmental concerns, comparing timelines, making observations that slowly started gaining traction. And once the algorithm caught onto it, oh, it spread like wildfire. Suddenly, what started as whispers turned into full-blown discussions across TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. And here's where it gets tricky, because instead of ignoring the noise, Chrisean addressed it. But not in a calm, PR-trained, media-safe way. No, she came in with energy, shutting everything down, dismissing concerns, making it very clear that in her eyes, nothing was wrong. To her, this wasn't concern. It was disrespect. It was people overstepping, judging her child, and trying to label something that didn't need a label. Now normally, that would have been the end of it. But this is not a normal situation. Because enter Karlissa Saffold, and when I tell you she added gasoline to an already burning fire, I mean she practically showed up with a whole tank. Because instead of staying neutral, instead of keeping things behind closed doors, she stepped into the conversation publicly and completely flipped the narrative. Karlissa didn't just disagree, she escalated. She started making statements that suggested there were issues, not small ones either, but several disabilities, which instantly made the situation 10 times more serious. And the moment those words hit the internet, oh, it was OVR. Because now this wasn't just fan speculation. This was coming from inside the family, and people immediately started asking, who do you believe on one side? You have a mother fiercely defending her child, rejecting labels, standing 10 toes down against what she sees as negativity. On the other side, you have a grandmother implying there's truth being hidden, painting a completely different picture. And the public, they're stuck in the middle, watching this unfold like it's the most uncomfortable episode of reality TV ever produced. But it didn't stop there, because once Karlissa spoke, the internet did what it does best: dig old interviews past live streams, clips that didn't mean much before suddenly started getting reanalyzed frame by frame. People were zooming in, slowing things down, comparing behaviors, creating threads, making breakdown videos. It was giving FBI-level investigation over something deeply personal, and the reactions completely divided. Some fans were defending Chrisean with their whole chest, saying she has every right to protect her child from labels and public scrutiny. Others were side-eyeing the situation, saying where there's smoke, there's fire. Especially if a family member is speaking out like that. And then you had a third group, the loudest group, turning the entire situation into memes, jokes, and viral content, completely ignoring how serious the topic actually is. But here's what really made things spiral: the emotional undertone, because you could feel that this wasn't just about the child. This was about deeper issues: control, resentment, past drama, unresolved tension between Chrisean and Karlissa that had been building long before this moment. And now, instead of arguing over petty shade or relationship drama, they were clashing over something much heavier. Something that hits differently when it's played out in front of millions. And just when it seemed like both sides had said their piece, more voices started entering the chat. Influencers, bloggers, even people loosely connected to the situation began sharing their opinions, adding layers to the story, sometimes making it messier, sometimes trying to clarify things, but only making it more confusing. It turned into a giant game of telephone, where every new take slightly twisted the narrative until nobody even knew what the original truth looked like anymore. And Chrisean, she wasn't backing down. She continued to stand firm, doubling down on her stance, making it clear she wasn't going to let anyone, family included, define her child or control the narrative. But at the same time, Karlissa wasn't retreating either. If anything, she seemed more determined to be heard, to push her version of events, to make sure her claims didn't get brushed under the rug. So now you've got two strong personalities, both refusing to fold, both speaking publicly, both influencing how millions of people perceive the situation. And the scariest part, this is just the beginning. Because once the internet locks onto a story like this, it doesn't let go. And with tensions this high, emotions this raw, and receipts starting to surface, and just when you thought this situation couldn't get any louder, messier, or more uncomfortable, the internet said, "Hold my Wi-Fi," and turned this into a full-scale digital circus. Because the moment both sides doubled down, the story stopped being a disagreement and officially became content, and not the cute, entertaining kind. We're talking about the kind that has people arguing in comment sections like they're getting paid hour. Suddenly, everybody had an opinion. You had influencers jumping in, reacting like they were front row witnesses to the situation, breaking everything down with dramatic pauses, and y'all not ready for this energy. Bloggers started posting back-to-back updates like it was a breaking news cycle. And TikTok turned into a courtroom. people stitching clips, adding captions. Zooming into moments like they were uncovering some hidden conspiracy, it was giving law and order, social media unit, but the real chaos. The fans, because they didn't just pick sides, they went to war. One group was riding for Chrisean Rock like she was untouchable, defending her every word, calling out anyone who even questioned her as haters or weird. Meanwhile, another group was backing Karlissa Saffold, saying she had no reason to lie, especially about something this serious, and claiming she was the only one brave enough to say what others were thinking. And then there was the third group, the chaos agents, the meme makers, the ones who turned a sensitive situation into viral entertainment, reaction videos, exaggerated edits, sarcastic commentary. They treated the whole thing like it was an episode of reality TV, not real life. And every time a new clip surfaced, they ran with it, adding dramatic sound effects like this was some Marvel multiverse crossover instead of a family dispute. Speaking of drama, the comparisons got wild. People started saying this whole situation felt like a mix between a Kardashian family meltdown, a WWE backstage fight, and a Zeus Network reunion episode where nobody gets security until it's too late. And honestly, they weren't wrong, because every news statement felt like a new round in a match nobody asked for. Ding ding, Chrisean responds. Ding ding, Karlissa fires back. Ding ding, the internet explodes again. But here's where things took a turn, contradictions, because the more people dug, the more they started noticing things that didn't quite add up. Old clips resurfaced where statements sounded slightly different. Past moments that were once ignored suddenly felt important. People started asking, wait, didn't she say something else before? And just like that, the narrative got even more complicated. Now, instead of a two-sided argument, it turned into a full-on investigation. Threads started popping up, breaking down timelines, comparing statements, analyzing body language like everyone suddenly got certified in psychology overnight. Some were reaching, let's be honest, but others, they raised questions that made people pause for a second. And in internet time, even a second of doubt is enough to fuel a whole new wave of chaos. Meanwhile, the emotional temperature sky high, because even though people were laughing, joking, and making memes, there was still an underlying tension you couldn't ignore. You could tell this wasn't just for clout, this was personal. The kind of personal that doesn't disappear. When the cameras turn off, and every time a new post dropped, you could feel the weight behind it, even if it was wrapped in sarcasm or shade. And let's talk about the reactions from outside voices. Because once other personalities started chiming in, things got even messier. Some tried to stay neutral, giving those both sides need to handle this privately speeches. Others picked a side immediately and went all in, adding fuel to the fire with bold takes and dramatic commentary. And of course, a few people saw the situation as an opportunity, jumping in just to go viral, knowing the topic was trending and the engagement was guaranteed. But the most interesting part, the way public perception kept shifting. One moment, people were fully on Chrisean's side, praising her for protecting her child and standing firm. The next moment, a clip or a statement would resurface, and suddenly the energy would flip, with people questioning everything. Then Karlissa would speak again, and the cycle would repeat. It was like watching a pendulum swing back and forth, with nobody fully committing to one version of the story. And in the middle of all this noise, the actual truth started getting harder to find, because when too many voices enter the conversation, clarity disappears. Facts get mixed with opinions, emotions get mixed with assumptions, and before you know it, nobody is talking about what's real anymore. They're just reacting to whatever's loudest. And right now, everything is loud. But here's the part that really made people uneasy. The realization that this wasn't slowing down anytime soon, because both sides were still active, still responding, still adding new layers to the situation. And as long as that kept happening, the internet was going to keep feeding off it, amplifying every detail, every word, every reaction got so now the question isn't just who's right. It's how far is this going to go? Because if things are already this intense and we're only halfway through the drama, then whatever comes next, yeah, it might just blow everything we've seen so far completely out of the water. And just when people thought the chaos had peaked, the energy shifted. Not louder, not funnier, but heavier. Because somewhere between the memes, the reactions, and the non-stop back and forth, reality started creeping in. This wasn't just internet drama anymore. This was a family situation unraveling in real time, with millions of people watching like it was primetime television. And that's when the tone changed, because suddenly, people weren't just laughing, they were questioning. Questioning boundaries, questioning motives, questioning why something this personal had spiraled so far into the public eye. Even some of the same fans who were joking earlier started pulling back, realizing this wasn't just tea. It was something that could have real emotional consequences. But by that point, the damage was already done. Because both Chrisean and Karlissa Saffold had locked themselves into their positions, there was no softening, no quiet resolution. No let's handle this privately moment. Instead, every new response felt like another line drawn in the sand, another signal that neither side was willing to step back. And when nobody backs down, things don't resolve, they escalate behind the scenes. You could almost feel the tension growing, not just between them, but across everyone connected to the situation. Because when two strong personalities clash publicly, it doesn't stay contained, it spreads. Friends, supporters, even casual associates start forming opinions, sometimes stepping in, sometimes adding pressure without even realizing it. And that ripple effect, it changes everything. Then came the emotional fallout. Because while the internet thrives on drama, real life doesn't work like that. There are relationships involved, trust being tested, lines being crossed that can't easily be uncrossed. And once certain things are said publicly, especially about something this sensitive, they don't just disappear. They linger, they reshape how people see each other moving forward. And for Chrisean, the pressure only intensified. Because now it wasn't just about defending her child, it was about defending her role as a mother in front of millions. Every word she said was being analyzed, every reaction scrutinized, every decision questioned. And whether people supported her or not, one thing was clear: she was standing firm, refusing to let the narrative be controlled by anyone else. But on the other side, Karlissa wasn't fading into the background either. If anything, her presence in the conversation stayed strong, consistent, almost like she was determined to make sure her voice didn't get drowned out. And that created an uncomfortable reality, because now, instead of one clear storyline, the public was left juggling two completely different versions of the truth. And when truth becomes subjective, confusion takes over. Fans didn't know what to believe anymore. One day they were convinced one side was right, the next day something would surface that made them second-guess everything. It became less about facts and more about perception. Who seemed more believable, who sounded more confident, who people felt emotionally aligned with. But here's where things took an unexpected turn: the silence between the noise. Because after all the statements, all the reactions, all the viral moments, there were gaps, moments where neither side posted, neither side responded, and for a second, the internet didn't know what to do. And ironically, those quiet moments spoke the loudest, because it left space for people to reflect, to rethink, to realize just how far things had gone. And in that silence, a new question started forming: what happens next? Because drama like this doesn't just disappear. It either resolves or it evolves. And based on everything we've seen so far, this situation isn't the type to quietly fade away. There are too many emotions, too many eyes watching, too many loose ends still hanging in the air. Some people believe there's going to be a private resolution eventually, a behind-the-scenes conversation where things get handled away from the cameras. Others think this is just the beginning of a much bigger fallout, one that could permanently shift relationships and change how both sides move publicly moving forward. And then there's the wildest theory of all, that what we've seen so far is only part of the story. Because if there's one thing the internet has learned time and time again, it's that the biggest revelations never come first. They come later, when people least expect it, when emotions settle just enough for new information to slip through. When someone decides they've had enough and drops something that flips the entire narrative on its head. And with this situation, this messy, this emotional, this public, you can't rule that out. So now we're left here, watching, waiting, wondering which version of the story will hold up, and which one might crumble under the weight of everything that's already been said. Now listen, if this whole situation didn't have you sitting there like, what did I just witness? Then I don't know what will, because this wasn't just drama. This was a full-blown emotional roller coaster with plot twists, side characters, and enough chaos to power the entire internet for a week. And the craziest part, we still don't have all the answers. So I need you to tell me right now, whose side are you on? Are you rocking with Chrisean, standing strong and protecting her child no matter what? Or do you think Karlissa is saying what others are too afraid to say out loud? Or maybe, just maybe, you think the truth is somewhere in the middle and we're all just watching pieces of a much bigger story unfold? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't be shy, because I already know those opinions are loaded. This is one of those situations where everybody got something to say, and honestly, I want to hear all of it. The theories, the breakdowns, the hot takes, bring it. And while you're at it, go ahead and smash that like button like it owes you money, because you already know we're breaking down every messy update the second it drops. Subscribe if you're not already, because trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. Because if this story taught us anything, it's that the internet never sleeps, the drama never ends, and the next twist, it's probably already loading.